Heavenly Father, we thank you. Divine Source, we thank you. Most Holy Creator, who is the lover of our soul, we thank you. As we ask and invite your presence, as we study and investigate another of your children. We know that we only have the present, no past, no future. We know now. What we see now, what we learn now, we hope to put in practice in our lives. Guide us, strengthen us, and keep us, Father, and all those who are on their way to opening up, to listen and partake, learn, Father, of what we learned. I thank you for this opportunity. We've learned so much from it. Continue, please, to guide, keep us, open our minds and our hearts. We ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
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 Oh, hello, Lurleen.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone.
Hello. Hello, everybody.
Everyone.
Welcome. Welcome to
Welcome.
Women of the Bible. Welcome to the verdict. Welcome to the courtroom. Tonight's subject, tonight's defendant is Tamar.
Tamar.
So we are going to hear from our prosecutor today, QC Minister Althea, and from our defender,
Amen.
Defender Beryl St. James.
Yes.
In order with the order, we will start. It's a shame because I know that we've got more people coming.
Oh.
So what we're going to do is the usual pattern will be that you present your case as prosecutor, followed by defender. Then questions will come from the floor. Then we'll have rounding up arguments, and then the jury, who were asking questions earlier, will then decide. It will be put to the vote of guilty or not guilty. We'll soon find out from our prosecutor what Tamar is guilty of, and you'll find out from the defender what she is innocent of. Or should I say not guilty rather than innocent? So over to you, QC Minister.
Right. Tonight we've got in the dock Tamar. And I just want to give you a little background, history of the family before I go into why she's guilty. Tamar, the fruit, she's called, or date palm, that's what her name means, or palm tree.
Oh.
Anyway, she's the daughter of King David. Her half-brother, I'm sure you all read the story, but I'm just going to give you a recap to let you know why I believe she's guilty. Her half-brother is Ammon, was killed by Absalom, right?
Okay.
And in verse 1 of every single one of your Bibles, it says, and it came to pass, or after this, look at verse 1, or in the course of time. One is King James, one is the NIV, and one is the New King James. In every single one of them, and it came to pass. So that means that something had happened before this story with her, with Ammon and Tamar. We're entering a story in a mid-progress. What had transpired between these two before?
Sorry, could I just back in, my learned friend? I think you've got the wrong defender in the box.
No, I'm just saying I'm giving you a backstory. I'm giving you a backstory why. You don't want me to give the backstory.
To my lord. My lord, I must object because a learned friend may be trying to mislead the jury.
How?
The text that is on trial is in Genesis 38. So I don't want my learned friend to mislead the jury. So I object.
Does the QC, has the QC got evidence to suggest that the Tamar of David is the Tamar of Judah?
That's the question I'm asking the prosecutor.
Oh, the prosecutor's face is looking somewhat...
No, I'm listening, no.
Okay.
So are you trying to confuse the jury here? Because the Tamar of Judah is the lady that is on trial here.
Yes, that's right. She's on trial because she was raped. Is that the one we're talking about? Because that's the one that I've studied.
Oh, no.
We've got two Tamars.
We've got two Tamars. And I was sure I checked, and we said we were doing the one. So the one that you're talking about is the one that was married, and then her husband died.
Yeah.
And when her husband died, then the father promised her that she would. That's right. Okay, I can do that one for memory. All right.
Hey.
So she's the lady that is accused of having sex with her
Yeah,
father-in-law.
that's right. That's right. No, come on now, don't come on. I know where I am now. So we got the Tamars mixed up. So what happened was, which part is that again, Pastor Beryl? Which part in the Bible?
Genesis 38.
Genesis 38.
Genesis 38.
Right. So what happened was she got married, and then her husband died, and what happened was her father-in-law promised her, he faithfully promised her that she would marry the next son. But the father was afraid. So what happened was, she's there, Tamar, she's waiting and waiting and faithfully waiting, wearing all of her bereavement clothes, waiting for the husband, for the dad, to give her the next son. She saw that the son had grown up, so you must have known she waited for a long time. And she went to the gate when she didn't see him. She changed all her clothes. She went to the gate and she met the man at the gate, and he wanted to have his way with her. And he didn't recognize who she was. So I believe that she is guilty because she went there knowing that she was going to dress like a prostitute, knowing that she'd be sitting at the gate where he would be passing by. She knew when he was going to go to take the sheep and cattle to the market. She knew that he would be meeting his friends there. So she went there purposely to go and have sex with him, to teach him a lesson, because he did not give his son as promised to her. So what she did was, to make sure that he knew, she took us a ring, and she took other things, a couple of other things from him, and then he waited. Then when he heard that she was pregnant with child, that is when he's now telling her that she's wrong for what she's done, because he thought she'd slept with somebody else. But I'm telling you today that she knew exactly what she was doing. She went and sat at that gate, and that she is guilty as charged, because she knew that he was passing by, and she had sex with her father-in-law, which she, because of the way she portrayed herself, she covered her face, which was totally wrong. But well, men being what they are, she got away with it. So what I'm saying is that she knew exactly what she was doing when she went and sat at that gate.
Okay.
And that is the reason why she's guilty. She purposely went there, and she purposely sat down. She purposely waited for him. And then she got a wicked way, and then she got pregnant. And that is what the prosecutor for tonight.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Now we'll move across to the defender.
Right, to my learned friend, I'm going to give you the history of this woman.
Okay.
This lady, Tamar, was married to a man whose name was E-R.
That's right.
And this man's father is Judah. And
Yep.
Judah had 3 sons. She was married to the oldest one, Now, God killed her husband, because he's a wicked man. His level of wickedness was too much. that God killed him. Now, under the law at that time, is that if you are a woman without children, the law at that time stated that you could then marry the next brother in line. So the custom of that time is, yes, you can go on to marry the brother. Now, he had no children. Had no children. And again, the custom of that time, if you are without children, you are deemed to be of no value, you are rubbished, you are disgraced. In fact, to have no children, to have no heirs is a real issue for you. So the second brother, whose name is Onan, she married Onan. And this is the first time in the Bible where you see an abortion happens in the Bible. Because instead of him depositing, they had sex and he was supposed to deposit the seed within her to impregnate her, he purposely spilt his seed onto the ground so that there will be no offspring. There was a plan behind this man also, because he's another wicked one, because he realizes that if there is offspring, then this woman is also going to benefit. So he didn't want to have any heirs with her. As it so happened, he was deemed also wicked by God, and God killed him too. So you imagine that this woman, you've now got 2 dead husbands. Again, under custom that she's allowed to marry, if there are any more brothers, she is allowed to marry them. She goes to Judah, who is her father-in-law, and says to her father-in-law, under the custom, you have another son. Now, I can understand Judah being a bit nervous because this woman's had 2 husbands, they're both your sons, and they're both dead. So you can get a little bit, you've got a last little one in the back. Instead of Judah, under the law, giving her that boy, which is what he should have done, he was very reluctant to do so. So rather than do that, he tells her to wait. This lady is now being disgraced and people are saying all sorts of things against her. And it's really quite unfair because Judah, the father-in-law, is wrong, but he's nervous in case he gives the 3rd son and he dies. In the meantime, Judah loses his wife. So he goes into mourning. And the upshot of it is he then doesn't want to be bothered to deal with Tamar. He doesn't want to keep his word. He doesn't want to honor her. So he locks her away within a house way outside the village and under the strict instructions that nobody is to go anywhere near her because under the law then she was supposed to marry the next son. She realizes that he is not going to keep his word. And this is where, because Judah's in mourning, and remember that this happened over, it's not just like over a day thing, it's over months, if not years. This is where she hatches a plan. She knows that Judah will have been in mourning. She dresses herself as a prostitute. And Judah doesn't think with his head, his body, and it isn't a one-day event that he's with her, and he ends up as her father-in-law, and she knows he's the father-in-law. She ends up getting pregnant. Before the pregnancy takes place, she steals from him like a belt thing he has around his waist and a couple of other items, like one of his knives. She goes home, back into her house. Then Judah is informed, by the way, did you know that your daughter-in-law Tamar is pregnant? He then jumps up and down, indignation. How can this woman be pregnant? She's not allowed, rah, 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 rah. And this woman is to be killed and stoned. She sends back to him the cloth and an arrow and tells him the man that owns these items is the father of my child. The servants take it back, and at that point, Judah recognizes, oh my life, I've had sex with my daughter-in-law. So the reason I'm telling you that my daughter, my client, is not guilty, it's one of these situations that she was wronged, she was dishonored, and her father-in-law set out to disgrace her. I ask that you have any questions, but my submission is desperate women can do desperate things. Your Honor, to the jury.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Defender. Now, in light of the Defender's submissions on this one, is there anything you want to add before we go out to the viewing gallery?
Right. My learned friend is absolutely right by the missing of the tongue, that she was dishonest. I totally agree with that, but she changed it. That when she went there to the gate, she pretended to be a harlot. So I believe that although her husband did what he done and he died, and then the second husband done what he done, he promised that he would give her the third son, and he never did. So at the end of the day, she was guilty because she sat down there and she planned it. She changed her attire. She changed into what she wanted to change it to look like a harlot. She put on the makeup and she went to the gate and she sat there like a prostitute and had sex with her father-in-law, knowing exactly who he was, and took things from him so that she could prove later. So I believe that she is guilty as charged.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I have some questions, but I'm going to now at this point open the questions to the floor. Thank you. Faith?
Could I ask, what precisely is she charged with?
She's charged with being dishonest, and she's charged with, at the time, being a prostitute at the gate when she was a woman of means living in a family, and she acted unwisely by going to the gate and pretending to be a prostitute. And that she inveigled her father-in-law to have sex with her unlawfully.
So she's charged with dishonesty,
Yes.
solicitation, and incest.
That's correct.
Is that all right? You want to? Yes, you want to?
Yeah. Yes. Sorry. What was the second charge, please?
Solicitation, prostitution.
Right. Okay. Right. Okay. I think Sister Faith wanted to say something, and then I'll come in.
No, I was just going to comment that prostitution wasn't a crime.
Oh.
It isn't. It wasn't a crime.
No.
And can I also say that I believe from her behavior and the period of time we're talking about, it seemed to have been perhaps a regular thing in the Old Testament.
What was?
Prostitution.
Oh, yes. It was. The Old Testament is covered with it.
Now, as a point of law, there is no evidence that says prostitution was lawful. As there is today, we have prostitution and there are laws, yes? But it is still widespread. So we're going to go on the assumption that we have no evidence either way that prostitution is lawful, unless our defender can find a verse that says prostitution is lawful.
I'm looking for it right now, sister.
Okay.
But to the prosecutor, I would argue that my client only dressed as a prostitute. She was not a prostitute.
Yes, I was going to come to that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
I believe that. Oh, sorry, carry on.
So if I think that my learned friend, your original charge of a woman of ill repute, that's probably more where we may have a feeling that your original charge of low moral value might be something that we could.
So we'll add that one. We'll add immorality.
Okay.
But we
I don't agree with that either.
But that wasn't a crime either.
At the end of
No,
the day,
I don't agree with that either.
Sorry, Sister Bev, go on.
I don't agree with that because no way, in my opinion, did she do anything wrong. If anybody that should be on trial, it should be her father-in-law because he was deceiving her.
Yes.
He knew her. She didn't do anything wrong. Her two
Deception.
Yes. Her two husbands died. It wasn't her fault. It had nothing to do with her. They were wicked men and God took them, right? So it had nothing to do with her. Her father-in-law made a promise to her that when the youngest son was man enough, she would have him as her husband. And he reneged on that. So I don't see how you can be charging her with prostitution, immoral. She didn't do anything wrong.
But she deceived him. And it's what I believe that it's unlawful for the.
He deceived him, and it was his own fault that he got deceived because he
couldn't be there.
That deceived her and ruined her because he didn't keep to his promise.
He didn't keep to his promise, but if she hadn't gone there and dressed, remember that he couldn't see her, he didn't know who she was, so she deceived him.
I still don't agree with that.
I'm just going to guide the discussion as well, because it is not as cut and dried. Given that she was to marry Shelah,
yes.
Why did she not go and disguise herself to him?
Yeah.
So we do have a deception here.
But he was a good boy. He was a good boy. You wouldn't see him in that place.
Sorry, I'm sorry. One at a time. Just a moment. Sorry, who wants to speak right now?
I am looking at it this way.
Okay.
How could she go and deceive herself to Shelek, or whatever his name is? Because his father was the one who was supposed to bring her to him. So if she had gone and forced herself on him or put herself on him, then you could charge her with being deceitful. In my book, maybe I'm looking at it with rose-colored eyes.
I think so. I think so. But this is the point where everybody asks the questions.
Yeah.
I think so. Yes. Any more questions on this one? Or any more comments?
Yeah.
Well, okay, go ahead.
Yes.
Hello.
Sorry. Oh, yeah. Sister Beverly.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, accordingly, her father-in-law was the one who had not addressed his son's wickedness when they were alive, so God killed them.
Oh, sorry, Sister Blondell, I said Beverly. Yes. That was utterly confusing. You need to let me know when you want to speak. Sorry.
Yes, I said Blondell.
Yes, but I said Beverly, but that's fine.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't hear.
That's fine. Please,
so,
Sister Blondell.
So the father-in-law did not address the things that his sons were doing. That's number one. And furthermore, for her, she had to wait for a little boy to become a man. That was another point I see. And I don't think she was probably looking for companionship. And when the father-in-law met her, did she approach him, or did he approach her?
He approached her. I think the scripture said he approached her.
He approached her. So she can't be accused of prostituting herself.
Right.
He approached her.
Very interesting.
Can I just interject?
Yeah.
It's in the law. Can somebody read for me Leviticus 18 verse 10?
Leviticus 18 verse 10. Says the nakedness, the Leviticus 18 verse 10 says, the nakedness of thy son's daughter or of thy daughter's daughter, even their nakedness thou shalt not uncover. for theirs is thine own nakedness.
And there's other verses in there that tells you not to sleep with your father, your father-in-law, your sister, whatever. So she knew the law. Regardless that the Judah did not give her to Shileh because he was afraid that 2 sons had died. Yes, he was wrong, but she was wrong in what she was doing. She also knew the law, and that is why he sent her away and nobody touched her, because the law was precise and she was dishonorable. That is why she's guilty.
Nah.
No.
Okay,
No,
okay, may I speak now?
no, she's not guilty.
No, we're not the jury yet. We're at question.
Sorry.
Sorry.
No.
Can I just move first to Sister Faith and Sister Jean, and then I'll come back to you, Sister Beverly. Okay.
This law,
Oh no, did you speak yet, Sister Beverly?
this rule,
No, please. No. Oh dear. Sorry. I'm sorry, Mum.
this rule was made up after Tamar's life, long gone. Okay, this wasn't existing, right? This rule wasn't existing when Tamar was having her problems. Plus the fact that she has been so hard done by. First husband was no good. Some of us have this kind of luck. Second husband was too mean. Even with his sperm, he was too mean. The father was a scoundrel because he did not want to keep his word.
That's right. That's right.
Imagine how she felt. 2 men she was married to, both of them died, and she didn't even get a chance to try to get pregnant. No, she was already, they've done bad to her. And then she has to wait for this child to grow up. And after she stood by and went through all of that and is prepared, he sent the boy away and did not want to keep his bargain. No, the man was a despot. Then, in the meantime, unfortunately, I did I tell you, this woman was unlucky. She was in the wrong family altogether. So she could have no success in this family, because then his wife died. And instead of observing some kind of regular waiting, he run off to prostitutes.
Yeah.
So she knew what he was up to, and she decided she's not going to be overlooked anymore.
Yes.
So
They've hurt her too much. No.
Okay.
I think she was within her rights to do what she
You
did.
Yeah, I agree with you.
But two rights do not make a wrong.
That's right.
Two
Let's
wrongs
move
do not
now.
make a right, I mean.
If you can, please, go to Sister Beverly Holdpipe and then Sister Jean.
Thank you. Well, I think she was rather brave and a risk taker, because I think her moves were rather calculated.
Yes.
In the fact that she would have lived a life of, first of all, shame, even in both marriages where she was childless. Because if we remember Hannah, who went and prayed and prayed and prayed, and even though her husband, beginning with E, I can't remember now, no. Anyway, she was the one that went and prayed, and the priest in the synagogue had said to her, he thought she was drunk. Yes?
Yeah.
Now, I'm just using that as an example because of how Hannah felt, because she was childless, while the other wife, Penina, had lots of children.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
So coming back, so that just sets the scene as to how people feel being childless, even in a marriage. So this lady has been through 2 marriages within the same family, still childless, but she's now a widow. And she's been sent away, I believe, back to her father's house to stay, waiting for the 3rd one to grow up. So that's a pretty long wait.
Yeah.
And so during that time, she would have felt, I believe, powerless, the shame, and the fact that she had no future. Because if you're locked away as a widow, waiting forever and ever, and then noticing that the 3rd one is grown up, is now a young man, nothing is said, nothing is done. She's been passed by. So basically, she was left alone to just decay in her father's house. And so I thought she was being strategic and a bit crafty, really.
Yeah.
She did what I believe she felt she had to do
To do,
in
yeah.
that society. Because of
Yeah.
the Mosaic law at the time, her father-in-law was not honoring that.
Yeah.
He overlooked her and he left it, whether it was out of fear for losing his third son, but he overlooked it. He didn't keep his promise.
Mhm.
And so he cooked up this plan to go and stay by the roadside and put the veil over her face. She didn't approach him. Now, if she had inveigled him or tried to coerce him, you would say she was playing the game. But she knew, obviously, the pattern either of him or, you know, the men in that time. So she thought, okay, here is an opportunity. I'm taking a risk. It may backfire, but I'm taking a risk, and this is the one chance I've got, maybe. So she went and disguised herself. And I'm saying that she was smart in the sense that she asked for his staff. She asked for the ring and the seal. Now that seal is his signature. And he gave up all that for a seeming prostitute, yes, in order to have his way.
She must have been very good.
Yes.
Okay. Right.
So having got that far, I believe that she was strategic in knowing that if she was sent up to be stoned or to be burnt, that she would know, she would have legitimacy in who the father is.
Right.
And it wasn't so much her shame, but his.
Yeah.
In the end, he then acknowledged that she was more righteous than he was. That's me.
Okay. Thank you, Sister Jean. Then Sister Blondell. I can see Prosecutor.
I do agree with what Sister Faith is saying and the last lady there. I think the statement, by reading what we have just read about this lady, the statement is explicit, right? You can draw your guilty or not guilty from that. I would submit that I find this woman to be a very intelligent woman. She's immoral, she's moral. She has been hurt and she has been let down. And we must understand that back then, that it was the brother's duty. If one brother didn't get her pregnant and he died, it was the other brother to follow instruction and to remarry and produce an heir or a child. And this wasn't happening. Also, looking at it from the father-in-law side, obviously he promised her, and I think he must have got scared, you know. 2 sons dying. He didn't want to lose this other one. I was supposed to shut her up. He promised him to her. But obviously, this son must have been very young because she must have been getting on in age. Okay? And also, she must know something. There's something about this naughty father-in-law. He was a dirty man because he seemed to have she knew something about him, that he visited these brothels, so to speak.
I think.
So she knew how to get her baby now. So this is where her intelligence and craftiness in it. I think I would do the same thing, you know. I don't think she was sleeping with any man. She
No.
had her, she knew who's coming. She had her eye out because she wants this child to be from that, let's say, surname then, yeah? So she knew who was coming, and she set herself in a position that he would ask for her. Amen? And then the beauty about it, clever woman and moral as well. She knew that if she didn't take something from him, ask for something, evidence that he's been with her, he would deny it. When he found out that this woman was pregnant, he would deny it.
Yeah,
but she could have been stoned. Yeah.
Amen. Her insurance was to ask for whatever. And the day come when she had to use it against him, and he had to hands up and say, you're more righteous, you know? So, you know what? I find her not guilty.
Like that. So over to you, Sister Blondell. Sister Blondell?
Right. Yes. some of what I wanted to say was mentioned by the aforementioned three persons. And one of the things is what I'd like to add is that there was no DNA those days to make any proof.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very, very smart and cunning that she should say, give me your bracelet, give me some of your things, so that on that day, when they're going to accuse me, I can produce some evidence that it's you. You're the culprit.
Mm-hmm.
You're the one who is the father. So she had to do something.
Yes.
And I think she was really hard done by. And who knows?
Yeah.
She might have just wanted some companionship. But he took advantage of her.
Thank you. Both prosecutor and defender have been itching to speak. So do we do it in the standard order, which is prosecutor first, then defender, and then
No, let me hear what defender's got to say. Go
defender
on.
talk. Defender.
Well, I was just looking over at the notes on my learned colleague's shoulder, and my learned colleague has a question which says, does the ends justify the means? My colleague is saying, so just because this man had wronged her, the action that she's taken, is she justified in?
Yes.
Is that so, prosecutor? Isn't that what you've got written there?
That is what
Are
I
you
want
the prosecutor or
finished.
defender today?
No, I'm definitely the defender. I'm definitely
What?
defender.
Oh, sorry.
I'm definitely the defender, but the prosecutor.
I'll come to you, Sister Bear.
The prosecutor had a good question there, so I'm interested.
Yes, yes.
It's a good question, isn't it?
Very fantastic question. Thank you.
Right.
So over to the prosecutor, and then we're coming to, I see you, Sister Bear.
Right. What I wanted to say is I totally agreed with what's been said before, that yes, she was immoral. Yes, she was deceptive. Yes, she was clever in what she did. She went to the gate as a prostitute, knowing exactly what she wanted to do. But in the end, as my learned friend was saying, does the end justify the means? She had these two children. She had the children. She was pregnant. She proved who he was, and that's why she had to take 3 things from him to prove exactly. And if you read into the scriptures, it does tell you why she had to choose those things, so that there was no denying who the father was that of the child. So at the end of the day, does the ends justify the means? No, it did not, because she was morally wrong. She took herself down to his level and she entrapped him, and that is why we are here today.
Thank you. Wow, this is getting strong. This one is definitely controversial. Sister Beverly.
I think she was trying to uphold the Mosaic law.
Yes.
And because her father-in-law wasn't doing his part, she had to take a step. She had to move forward with her life. And also it's about, I believe, the lineage, which is so important, because you're supposed to keep that in the family. Remember Ruth and Naomi. Well, Ruth, she had no children. And it was Boaz who had to become the husband redeemer, because it had to be in the family. Do you understand? She could have gone and got pregnant with somebody else, even though that wasn't permitted because of the Mosaic law. And because he had already promised the 3rd son. So he did not keep his promise. And the other point is, the thing about her being the prostitute, I don't quite see it in that sense, because a prostitute doesn't go with a man in order to get pregnant.
No.
And she wasn't doing it for a game either.
No, for payment.
She didn't even have to like him. She wanted to keep that lineage going because her future was also in it. Because without having a son, she has no inheritance. She would die a pauper and a widow with 2 dead husbands, and that's it. Absolutely nothing. But it's interesting to know that even Yeshua came from her lineage. David was from
Yeah.
her.
Yes.
So I think Yahweh must have approved that one.
I think so too. And this is why.
He could have killed her the same way he killed horrible
Yes.
husband.
That's it.
Okay, Sister Blundell is itching to speak as well. Come, speak, Sister Blundell.
Sister Beverly just said the last sentence I was going to say. Well, I could say she fulfilled her womanhood in that she was able to have children at the end.
Yes.
Because she could have gone with anyone, but she kept herself. She kept within the family, as Sister Beverly had said. You know, and as the last sentence said, because the other husbands that she had, God was displeased with them, and that's why he killed them. He didn't kill her because she went to have sex with her father-in-law.
No.
So if God was displeased with her, he would have killed her too then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he could have done, but enough people had died. But I can see prosecutor is keen to speak. Prosecutor.
Right. Sister Bev, you mentioned Naomi, and you also mentioned
Ruth.
Elkanah's wife. They both waited on the Lord. Tamar did not wait on the Lord, and if she stayed with Judah, she would not have been destitute, because she would have been in that house living with him. In the end, she had to go away and live alone because of what she'd done. Now, everybody knew that she'd acted like a prostitute, looked like a prostitute, pregnant by somebody that she's not supposed to be with, and it was against the law for her to be with her father-in-law. So at the end of the day, everything she did was wrong.
Okay. Thank you very much. Defender, do you have something to say at this point? I have a few questions to both prosecution and defender. But Defender, do you have any points to make? Yes,
I think that the jury are so intelligent and bright. They've seen right through.
They're working for you today, aren't they?
Yeah. So I'm just sitting here and leaning back and having my cup of tea, because the jury are doing this case very nicely, and at the end of it, I will still pick up my £50,000 money. Hey, so let the jury continue. Thank you, jury.
You'll have to share it.
Now we have some points from Sister Angelica. Right. Please speak. Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
I listened, and I just want to make a few points as it relates to the story of this woman. This man, her father-in-law, had been manipulating her life. He gave her who he wanted to give to her. At this time, he asked her to stay as a widow for his son to grow. She noted that his son was grown, and that is evident in verse 14. She noticed that his son was grown, but she did not get the son. So she waited all this time in vain. She heard he was passing. She had lost hope and trust in him. And she went out. Yes, she covered herself and disguised herself from who she would have been normally. However, she did not approach this man. This man approached her. And she mistrusted him so much that she would not allow him to have approached her and not having some witness or some evidence. She got that. And whatever happened, she was able to defend herself. I agree, yes, that she went out there, but she covered herself, yes, in a deceitful way, but she did not act the role of a prostitute or a harlot. It was a man who approached her, and whatever they did, I don't think she did it in the context of her being a harlot. She knew this man, she knew it was her father-in-law. The man failed her, failed his promises, And he had been manipulating her life, having her studying up for all this time. And this is not saying that what she did was right, but then
Yes.
I'm not calling the stroke, but then I see that this woman had herself in a situation where she wanted to let this man know that I'm tired of what you have done to me.
Okay. Thank you for that, Sister Angelica. Sister Yvonne has had her hand raised as well. Could you unmute, please, to speak?
Oh, that's right.
That's it.
Can you hear me now?
Okay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that Tamar was a prostitute. I think Tamar, she dressed like a prostitute. So when you're like her, it's not that you are the person. And I think that Tamar living in the house with her father-in-law, I think she understands and she knows this man, so she could dress as is and add children for him. Because even in further down in the story, if you notice it, Judah had also put his hands up and said that, yeah, you know, she did this because she was waiting on this son, and I didn't give the son to her. And so we just have to look at it. And another thing that I was looking at, I think Judah was a bit disobedient, because I think his wife was a Canaanite, and I don't think that would be right for him was to take a Canaanite woman. So who knows, probably these are the things that he has gone through. But with the God of compassion, he would still see him as a man, and not like human being would be writing off human beings. So God is still there as a compassion father to us.
Thank you. Sisters Annette, Lurleen, Jennifer, and Sister Marjorie, welcome. I know you came in late. Do any of you have any comments, suggestions, or anything to add?
Yes.
Yes, that's
Annette.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. I think it was Sister Angelica, what she said. Because the thing is, yeah, she was waiting and she didn't get what she wanted. She didn't get the child from the third son. And we already said that he didn't want her. And then she had to go and live with the father-in-law. But then she knew she wasn't going to have a child by him. So going down to dressed as a prostitute, I don't think that made her a prostitute. She was just doing it. And as I think other people have said, that she even asked for a goat. I don't think she got the goat, but she asked for the seal and the rod, and she was devious in that way. But in other words, she was clever, because she knows that. And he approached her. He asked her. He approached her, and he asked her, "What will you pay me? What will you pay?" And that's when she asked for the seal and the rod. So she knew that if she got pregnant, and he wouldn't believe he was the father, then she had that to show. She had those things to show that he is, because we already said when he found out that she was pregnant and they said it was his, he said, burn her, burn her. And that's why she showed him all the things that she got for him. And that proved that she wasn't really a prostitute. She was just, because she wanted a child, she did that because she wanted a child. And as it worked out, she had twins, and it worked out the same thing. Esau and Jacob were twins, and then somewhere I wrote about Ruth, and I read about that those children, they were the lineage of David, and David was the lineage of Jesus. So it worked out. I know it might look to some that she was devious and she needed stoning, but she didn't. It turned out right. As someone said, the end means
Justify the means.
Justify the means. Yeah. So that's it. That's what I've got to say.
The earlier statement was, does it? Now we do need to go towards summing up, and I must admit, today I have quite a few questions that prosecution and defense need to consider that I don't think have been raised yet. Okay.
Bernice,
Yes, Sister Angelica.
can I just put a piece of evidence in?
Yeah.
Before you go on? I'd like to bring this evidence to the floor because I have been hearing persons mentioning or the information coming out as if she's dressed like an harlot. And the evidence that I have here, I am not seeing that she dressed like an harlot. I see that she disguised herself with a veil.
Yes.
She covered her with a veil and wrapped herself, and she sat in the open place. And it is the man, Judah, who thought she was an harlot, all because her face was covered.
Yes.
So there is no indication that she attired herself like an harlot. Because her face was veiled, she didn't know who she was. She thought she was a harlot.
Thank you.
Yes.
And may I? Yeah.
I just want to say one thing. Normally cover their faces.
Too many people are talking. Could you just raise your hand so I can see who wants to speak, please? Who wants to speak? Sister Faith, then we'll go to prosecutor. But
she knew that he was untrustworthy. Untrustworthy to the point when he went and decided she was a prostitute and offered to come into her. And she said, what will you give me? And he said, oh, I will send you a kid. Come on. Send her a kid. So she had to ask him to swear that he would send it. And that is why she took the ring and the other things. So because she didn't believe that he was going to do that. He was just going to disappear.
Yes.
And don't come back to her. But she know once she took those things, he'd have to keep his word. So I think she was a straight person, a lovely person. Look, if we'd met, we'd be friends, because she'd be able to teach me a thing or two.
Okay, I'm going to, because you all need to go to the summing up, and I don't think we've had a very balanced discussion today. So I'm going to throw up some points and questions here. First one, I'm going to observe that many women on death row have suffered heartbreak, but that doesn't make them innocent. Does revenge make someone innocent? Revenge for being overlooked son after son. It was the Lord that killed each husband.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was the Lord that killed each husband. So they must have been clearly deviant. Does the fact that she chose to marry the first deviant mean that she herself was this saintly person? Nowhere in the Bible, apart from when he's trying to cover his own tracks, does anyone say you're moral. It's only when he found out he did breed her, he called her moral. But him sleeping with a moral woman makes him moral, okay? So you also have to say he was approached after 3 months to say she was pregnant. Does a baby show that clearly after 3 months? I don't recall that happening. I don't think that is the case.
Not unless you're very skinny.
Next,
No,
even
but
if you're skinny, I was a skinny
She was
one.
having
Maybe
twins in it, so
I was
twins.
yes, so
Twins.
but still 3 months. Also, how is she moral? Because she's hurt and let down? Now, Judah was afraid the third son would die because he saw her as some black widow. We know she wasn't a black widow. She wasn't. The Lord chose to strike them down. He doesn't strike down everybody who sins, but he struck them down. Now, scared that the third child should die, he sent her away. Now, I would say there as well that I asked that question earlier. Now Sheila is grown. Why did she not go and dress up for him? Instead, was she lusting in Judah's house all these years while she was married to his sons? We don't know. All right. So we can't assume she's a saint. The Bible doesn't say she was moral, clever, positive woman of faith. The question is, do the ends justify the means? That is the question. It is certainly not a justification we're not saying the ends just, sorry, Sister Beverly, I'll come to you, but let me finish, okay? So it was, we can all agree, entrapment. Now, you're saying she wasn't a prostitute. She had her face covered, and when he then approached her, she asked what payment she would take. A prostitute is someone who has sex for payment.
That's right.
So whether or not she was obviously a prostitute is by the by. She had the choice to say the words, "I'm not a prostitute. I'm here and I'm wondering why you haven't given me your son as my husband, as you promised." Instead, she got do with it. All right? So, so they say, if it looks like a prostitute, if it walks like a prostitute, if it talks like a prostitute, let's stop telling each other she's not a prostitute on that day. Okay? We can say there are mitigating circumstances that made her immoral, that made her a prostitute, that made her, the fact as well that Leviticus states that sleeping with your father-in-law is incest, and murder is a crime, and murder is a crime, and lying is a crime, does not mean that in Genesis it was all okay. All that happened is Moses wrote the law on stone, but those laws are laws. And I don't think that when he came down from the mountain, anyone was surprised with what was written. So we can't then say that it's justified because Leviticus is later. That argument doesn't wash either. I know I'm not the prosecutor, but I just feel like today we were all so sympathetic to Tamar because she is so heartbroken and so abandoned that we have to look at the steps she took and the very facts and decide, is she guilty or not guilty? So I'm asking the prosecutor and defender to add those points to their submissions as well, just to balance the thinking.
That's right, yeah.
Okay, so
right.
Sister Beverly?
Yes, I just wanted to say that I believe she was trying to uphold the Mosaic law. And there's another law, I think it's called the Levirate law. That's all part of the issue of marrying the next brother down, you know, following right through. Just like, I think it's in the New Testament, when they were trying to trap Jesus and they said, well, you know, this woman had 7 husbands. You know, whose will she be when she's in the kingdom? Because it was part of the custom. So
Then she should have seduced Sheila.
Yeah.
But it's because the Mosaic law says you do not sleep with your father-in-law.
Yes, yes, but the third son was not given. So the father-in-law, he reneged on his promise.
The father-in-law was not given.
Yes, and
He was
also,
took.
also, it wasn't for her to approach him.
It's exactly what I said already.
Yes, the first.
It was not for her to approach Judah.
No, and also it was Judah that selected her for his first son.
Yes.
And that's how it's a part of the custom, the Jewish custom at the time, was that the father would go and select or send a servant, as they did for Isaac, was it Isaac? Yes, to go and find a wife. Yes.
Right.
So it was
but if Shelah was still alive, why do you all find it acceptable that she did run trip-trap to daddy?
Right. Are we summing up?
Right.
Or are we still...
We're not. I'm just raising those points because I just want the prosecution and the defender. We're going to now go over, I'm looking at the time, to the summing up, and then I'll come back for you all to draw your conclusions. Okay, so over to you, prosecutor.
Right. Shelah has now grown and he's aware of the laws and he's aware that he should marry Tamar, but he doesn't go to his father to say that. So we got two grown men in the house and one widow who's still wearing a widow's outfit and he knows he's got to marry her. She doesn't go towards Shelah, but she goes towards Judah. At the end of the day, she acted as a prostitute. Otherwise, it wouldn't have said in Genesis 38:21. Then he asked the men of that place, saying, "Where is the harlot that was openly by the wayside?" So you look like a harlot, you are a harlot. And also, harlots do not cover their faces. And she was deceived him, and she covered her face, and that is why she deceived him. And he had his way with her. Also, she didn't dissolve. You can go to the gate and you can also get your marriage dissolved. And she never did that. What she did was she went and dishonestly took Judah by the gate as a prostitute. So that is why I think she's guilty, because she acted unjustly to the family.
Don't agree with you.
Okay. Now we'll move over to have you finished with your summing up, prosecutor?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Over to you, defender.
I think that anything I add might be redundant. I think that the question of whether the ends justify the means, if she hadn't have taken any action, she would have been labelled barren. She'd have ended up on the street with nothing. So sometimes there are actions that we may take that in the modern era of today's life, sex with your father-in-law is outrageous. That's a Jeremy Kyle thing. But we are dealing with something that happened behind. And to see how this woman had been ill-treated by the father-in-law and the third son, I think desperate measures require desperate actions. She's not guilty. She was only doing what she needed to do to survive. I rest my case.
Question.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Before we go to the guilty, not guilty, the courtroom now become the jury. Do you want to cover any points with the rest of the jury before you decide, before you draw a verdict? Sister Angelica, I think you want to speak.
I'd like to ask a question. And this is in my ignorance. Need to know. We keep saying her father-in-law. However, the document says that her two husbands were dead. They were killed. and she was sent back to her father's home. Is that man still her father-in-law?
Yes.
What makes it so?
Oh, that's a good question. That is a good question.
Because she was married to his sons. The fact that they are dead don't dissolve the fact she's a widow. It does not, she didn't get divorced.
Yeah, that's right.
I'll throw the question to you
I
another
mean,
way. I'll throw it
that
to
does
you
not
another
need
way.
a divorce, because
Let me
if the
throw it to you another way. If you are in 2020 and you are married and you have your husband and your father-in-law and your husband should die, please, dear God, that was just hypothetical. Just don't take that. Does your father-in-law no longer, so can you now go and marry that man who sired your husband? Or is he your father-in-law?
You can actually marry him because you're not blood relative.
You're not blood relative. And the question, because I need to hear this, because the man whose sons she married sent her home to her parents. That means that they are no longer family, because family line is broken there. They are dead. They are no longer there. Go back to your family.
But the father-in-law, is wrong for doing that because he had another son that she's entitled to marry.
Yes, he was wrong for doing. He was wrong for doing that.
He said, I'm not putting you away. He said, remain a widow at thy father's house till Shelah my son
he put her away, because if he asked her to wait for these years for the son to be grown, and the son is now grown and nothing happens, it's technically meaning that he put her away.
No, because
this is why she did what she did.
And it has to be because he was not faithful to his promise. She had no husband, and the guy had reached the stage where he could have been married, and that promise was not met.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's it.
The bond was not.
It's a deep case, and it is a pity that we have to be summing up on some of these evidences that could go really deeper. But I understand in the sense that the case has to sum up. But there's so much to it.
There is a lot to it, yeah.
Yes, as QC Minister Althea has written, Genesis 38:8, Judah said to Onan, go in to thy brother's wife and marry her and raise up seed to thy brother. The connection is there right throughout, and you cannot, and I'll say that as the judge, you cannot, once that promise is made, that he remains her father-in-law. He's told her, you are the wife to my sons, and alive. So he remains her father-in-law. That may not affect your verdict, but I think we should leave that one as that, even though it's open to interpretation. All right, we'll just say for today that that's the father-in-law, because he maintained the promise that you are the wife to my sons, and there was yet a son alive. I think although, as you rightly say, it's open to interpretation, but we just for time's sake, we'll leave that one as that, and then we could analyze other Bible chapters to discuss that. But I think it
plays a major role in this case, you know.
Yes, so the judge is going to call it. The judge calls it, that's the father-in-law, because he insisted you are the wife of all three of them. Just for today. It won't actually, the way this jury is, I don't know that it will have that much of an effect anyway, but anything else? I saw that, you see, you wrote that verse 38 verse 8. Did you want to say something about it?
No, just clarifying that he's definitely is the father-in-law.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Does anyone else disagree that that's the father-in-law? It's not.
He was her father-in-law, but at the time when they met on the road, he wasn't a father-in-law.
He certainly was.
The role of his father-in-law.
I think you're seeing a lot of nodding. He certainly was. Because he still had a son that he had promised to her.
But that doesn't make him the father-in-law because the promise wasn't even fulfilled.
Not yet, but he was still the father-in-law from the first two.
He
Yes.
was the father-in-law, but that relation, if that woman had had another husband, would he still be her father-in-law?
Yes.
She didn't because she was made to wait. I think time is going, so I think we're just going to leave that one there because I think the general consensus as well is that that is the father-in-law. Does the defense agree that that's the father-in-law? Defender?
Yes, but the defender is also asking a question, but we say yes,
Okay, so
purely because
prosecutor
the
and
third son.
defender both say it's a father-in-law.
Yes, we do.
Okay, you have a question. You have a question, defender, you said.
Oh, no, I was, I thought it was a good question from the experimenter and one that requires a little bit more examination. But as far as I'm concerned, he is the father-in-law, but there are other cases where the woman has been sent back to her family. And even in today, in certain societies, that if you are a woman sent back to your family, you are no longer a member of that family once you're sent home. So it's a fair point.
At 7:40, it is a fair point. And it even takes us to the story of Ruth and their relationship with Naomi. Yeah. So it is a wonderful question. So thank you, Sister Angelica. It is. The time we're going to leave it as father-in-law and maybe another time take it up. Jury, do you feel ready to make a decision?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. I'm going to remind you of some key points. Do the question, do the ends justify the means? Prostitute, was she a prostitute? She was asked about payment and she declared what the payment would be. She agreed payment. Was she a saint? Did she break the Mosaic law that you do not sleep with your father-in-law?
No.
And do you feel that she is guilty, not guilty, or guilty with mitigating circumstances? It could be because of her actions. But let's now take this to the jury. I'm going to ask you to raise your hand if you feel she is guilty.
If you feel she's guilty. No.
That Tamar was guilty. If you feel that Tamar was not guilty. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if 5, 1, and also if you can't make up your, if she's guilty with mitigating circumstances. Sister Marjorie had her hand up. Guilty with mitigating, that's
Annette Rose.
Annette Rose, yeah. All right. So.
And me.
And all right. So on balance, it would appear the vote is Tamar is not guilty.
Okay. Not guilty, my lad. Not guilty, my lad.
Today is the only day. Last week I thought Delilah guilty, and I was happy with not guilty. I came in at 6:30 saying Tamar not guilty, and I am walking away thinking, you know, I don't know. But I
must say I didn't do too bad although I researched the wrong Tamar.
You did brilliant, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And Sister Jean, you want to say something? Unmute, please. Unmute. You need to unmute, please. That's it.
Can you hear me? I thought, I was so excited because after speaking to Minister Althea, and she told me that Tamar was guilty. I said, no, because I thought she was talking about Tamar and Ammon.
So did Minister Althea.
Yeah.
So did I. So I got it wrong. We'll go there next time, Sister G.
Yeah. Anyway, I've got to leave. I'm at my daughter's house for my grandson's birthday, so I've got to leave now. God bless you all.
Oh, God bless you. God bless you. Enjoy. Happy birthday to him.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care. folks, that's so enjoyable. And as usual, the questions, all the questions are just leaving me, sending me to the Bible, including you, Sister Angelica. Only time stops that discussion, but it's a great discussion. Yeah. Only time. So back to you, prosecutor and defender, to close off. Thank you. Did you all enjoy that?
Yes, yes.
I really did as well. Thank you. So over to you to close.
Come on, prosecutor.
You're the prosecutor.
I mean, defender.
You're one defender.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you very much indeed. These sessions have been really, really enjoyable, because one thing that I firmly believe is that when people study and look up their own evidence and have their own idea, you get a better growth within yourself.
Yes.
Because for so long, many people will go into the pulpit, preach things. And the thing that, one of the first things that tonight demonstrated for me is they often get the two Tamar stories mixed up.
Yeah.
They mix up the two stories. So it's, I sit there and think, no, you're mixing up. And so I know that the prosecutor helped in just explaining this point, but often people mix up the two things and don't realize it's two different women. So thank you very much indeed for your participation. Greatly appreciated.
Honestly, I love it when I watch you guys go to the Bible and come back with your arguments and
we also
lock on, all of you.
One of the things that we also need to pay attention to is that when persons put on a veil and all of that, it also sends a message of being sad, that kind of thing. So if you look at it from that perspective too, you know, you would come up with another kind of, what I would say, defense or argument. Because I really don't, the case is closed, but I'm just saying, looking at it, I really do not see her like a prostitute, because one thing is not really her doing prostitution, and that's why they couldn't label her as a harlot when they went looking for this harlot. They could not have. So her garb was not really saying that she was a harlot.
Oh, excuse me, wait. Give me a goat, please.
Remember, her case was directly related to Judah. It wasn't that she was a street girl and trying to find a man to get into her case. Directly related to Judah. She heard he was coming. And who said that her I'm not sure, I'm just saying, this is just a proposition. Who said her intention was not for him to really recognize, that he blundered somewhere. I can't go into
that. He blundered everywhere. He blundered everywhere.
Sister Beverly.
Yes, just to say that as Sister Angelica mentioned about the veil, I know that in Eastern countries, widows wear a black veil. And you have to wear it for something like 6 months or for a very long time, because it's a status thing where that you're telling the society that you're in mourning. And so they wear this veil over their face. It's a bit like, wearing the hijab, but you don't see the eyes even. It's a complete veil. And when the complete veil is there, it means that you're a widow in mourning. And so if Judah had asked, where's that widow that was by here? They probably would have said, oh yes, I see someone. But to say, where's the harlot? Oh, there's no harlot around here. So they didn't recognize, in a sense, that at the time she was a harlot.
So, well, she wasn't.
Because
she wasn't. She wasn't just disguised.
That's what I'm saying. Yes. And also, just one last.
Continue as well.
Okay.
I just wanted to say, Pastor B, when I looked up in this book, Who's Who in the Bible, and looked for Tamar, there's only one Tamar mentioned, and that is the one you tried tonight. So I don't see that I couldn't possibly mix that up.
But we know the other one.
There's another Tamar. There's another Tamar.
I know there's another.
In Samuel. In
Yes.
Samuel. In
Yeah.
Samuel.
Sister
There's another
Yvonne?
one.
Oh, sorry.
Was raped by
There's
her
another
brother.
Tamar in Samuel.
Yes,
Second
definitely.
Samuel.
David
And
spoke to that.
Absalom's sister was also
Absolute
Tamar.
Tamar. That's
But
what
I
I'm
mean,
saying.
did anybody notice that the first child that came out, I think it's the first one,
Yes, with
was
the
in the lineage of
Yes.
Jesus was in that lineage of the child?
Yeah.
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 That first
Yeah.
child,
Yeah,
Tamar's
they
first
put
child?
the
Yeah.
they put the red thing,
red,
Not the
red
one,
tie around the
string,
no,
not
not
the
the one
red
with the
string,
scarlet.
the
Remember, the one,
scarlet string.
no, the one with the scarlet pushed his hand out first.
Yes.
Yes.
And the nanny, I call her, tied it the
Yeah.
round. However, the other child passed
Yeah.
that came out first.
Yeah.
Because the one that came out first is in the lineage
Yes.
of Jesus, the one that is called PHA or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I have been looking for the other one, Zera, and I can't find him anywhere. If somebody can find him, that is nice. But the one that came out first is in the lineage.
They said one was called breakthrough, and the other one bright,
Yeah, the first one is a breakthrough.
Okay.
and then the last one is bright.
Could we move over to Sister Yvonne, please? She's waiting patiently. Could you unmute, please, Sister Yvonne? Just press the mute button again. Yeah. Oh, you pressed the video, but we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the discussion and everything is really good. We learned so much from it, but I have to run off to another meeting, yeah?
Okay then.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. All right. Should we move to close then, please?
I just say one thing though. I think that every time we do discussions, we've got to talk about what it means to us in this 2020. And to me, it means that Judah was very quick to go and blame Tamar for being a harlot when he was the one that was wrong in what he did. And so at the end of the day, it's telling me not to point the finger at other people, because we have to look at ourselves as well. And also, she waited a long time for the other son to grow up. So she was very, very, very patient. And sometimes we're very, very patient and we're waiting for God, and it doesn't seem like God is going to honor his promise, and we're waiting and we see other people around us being blessed. But what we've got to do is just praise God and keep on worshiping him and be with him, because he's the one that will then direct our paths and take us through what we need to go through. So I just want to finish off with that.
And this is why he blessed Tamar and made her pregnant. By her
even if we are wrong, sometimes the Lord makes it right for us.
Yes, that's right. Amen.
Amen.
She needed to have that baby before her menopause.
Just in mind. I know you want to speak. Randall? Sorry, time is so short. You want to unmute?
Yeah, just to say I have to go as I've got another Zoom.
Don't worry.
Bless you.
Okay, good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I would want to say, never take a promise, especially when it's a man you're being promised.
That's right.
You'll spend your whole life away
Mm.
getting nothing.
Not necessarily.
Not all men, not all men, not all men.
Never. Notice what I said? For me, I will never take a promise from a man that he's going to be with me. Yes? If I am going to want a husband, I won't sit and wait for a man to promise me that he's going to be my husband. If he's going to be my husband, he's going to be my husband. That's a tough one, because if you are a grown woman and you are sitting waiting, there are so many things that are going through your mind. Mm-hmm. Especially you send me back to my parents' home for me to.
But
and
no, I
that way.
Sister Angelica.
I'm speaking about me.
Okay. All right. It's you. Yes. Okay. Okay.
So you send me back to my parents' home for me to wait for a marriage, and all I am waiting, nothing is happening. I would never want to take that. That's what
Yep.
that's one of the things I'm learning here. Don't
So
wait.
you would go and do the same thing that Tamar did then, just to fix him.
I did not mention that as what I've learned. I mentioned that I've learned not to sit Sister Faith. Sister Faith, you're bad.
You are walking on the wild side, but it's okay.
Right. The prosecutor is now got to go to another Zoom meeting.
Okay. It was lovely. It was good.
Thank you.
Okay.
Now,
So can we get
Yes.
Sister Angelica to close in prayer?
yes, I'm hungry.
Yes.
All right, let's go since we have to go. Father, in the name of Jesus, we just want to thank you for this moment, such a special moment when you have called these women, all of us together, for us to share of the words in the Bible. They have been written there, and sometimes, Lord, we don't even look over them. Thank you for this opportunity. And for the lessons that you would have had us to learn, please help us to learn them. And for those that you would have had us to share with others, please help us to share them in clarity. Father God, I pray that all the misunderstandings that we may have had, please remove them from us and allow your Holy Spirit to bring light to us. Yes, it was a good session, Lord, but we don't want to leave just feeling that it was a good session. We want to leave with the truth of your word in our hearts. May you continue to keep us together, bind us with cords that can never be broken. Bless us and continue to inspire us, and let your presence always be with us as we move from each other now. We tell you thanks in Jesus' name. Thank you for the prayer.
Amen.
Hallelujah.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you,
Amen.
ladies.
Blessing.
Bye,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good to
Bye.
see your
I'm going to
faces.
now. Bye. Bye.
Bye.